10 real Dogman attacks and mysterious creature encounters. Listen carefully, because the next 10 accounts come from people who did not ask to be heroes. They only wanted to live. They were truckers, campers, parents, rangers, and kids, they reported. The same thing again and again. A tall shape like a man with a wolf's head, long arms, and yellow eyes that shine even when there is no light. People call it the Dogman. Some call it a skin thing, a ridge runner, or the dark watcher of the pines. Names do not matter. What matters is what it does. If you hear claws on glass at night, if you smell wet dog and rotten leaves, if the woods go silent all at once, remember these stories, because every witness says the same line at the end. I thought I was safe until I looked up. 1. The trucker on Route 19. Jake drove nights to keep his company alive. On Route 19, the road ran straight between black trees and swamp. It was 2 in the morning when his high beams hit something crouched over fresh roadkill. It stood up slow, taller than the hood of his 18-wheeler. It did not run. It stepped into the lane and showed a chest like a wrestler and a head like a wolf. The ears were sharp, the muzzle wet, and its breath fogged the glass from 5 yards away. Jake hit the horn. The creature did not flinch. It raised one hand, long fingers with black nails, and dragged them across his chrome bumper. Metal screamed. Jake swerved. The rig fishtailed. He kept it on the road, by luck. In his mirror, the thing dropped to all fours and chased. For 100 yards, it kept up at highway speed. Then it peeled off into the trees. In daylight, he returned with a deputy. The bumper had 4 deep, even grooves, like someone pulled a set of meat hooks in one smooth stroke. The deputy said, "Big cat maybe, but cats don't walk like men," and smile at horns. To the Lake Campanina, and her brother camped at a quiet lake in Upper Michigan. The evening was warm, the water calm, and the loons called. At midnight, the forest fell silent. No insects, no birds, only the ripple of something heavy entering the water, their tent wall pushed in as if a hand pressed from outside. Nina whispered, "Moose," but the smell was wrong. It was musky, sour, like wet fur left too long. A shape moved along the mesh window, too tall for a deer, too thin for a bear. She saw a profile like a wolf's head against the stars. It stood upright. She grabbed the flare gun and fired low. The light popped and filled the clearing with red. The creature flinched and turned. It did not bound away. It walked, shoulders swaying, until it reached the tree line. In the morning they found prints in the damp sand. Not paws, not boots. They were long, almost human, with claws at the tips. The ranger at the station told them to keep it off social media. "You don't want people coming out here to poke it," he said. "Sometimes it pokes back." 3. The farmhouse watcher. A small Kentucky farm. Maria kept goats and 2 old hounds. For weeks she woke to fences bent and feed bins tipped. One night she heard the hounds growl from the porch and the goats scream in the barn. She went out with a flashlight and a kitchen knife, because that's what she had. The beam found a pair of yellow eyes high in the loft door. A head rose, and she saw a jaw too long and teeth too many. It dropped from the loft without a sound and landed on bent legs like springs. It did not attack her. It walked between her and the barn door as if to cut her off. Her hounds barked once and then hid under the steps. Maria stepped back toward the house. Never turning her back, the creature followed to the edge of the light. When she reached the porch, it stopped. It placed one long hand on the post, and the wood popped under its grip. In daylight, the post had 5 deep dents, spaced like fingers. Her hounds would not go near the barn for 3 days. One goat vanished. There was no blood for the ranger. On Ridge 47, Evan was a park ranger in Washington State. Quiet man, clean boots. He knew every trail on Ridge 47. At dusk, he was closing a back road when he saw a shape cross between two firs. It was black against the purple sky and taller than the sign. He called out, "Park's closed," because that is what rangers say. The shape froze, then turned. Its head in a slow, careful way. Eyes caught the last light and flashed like coals. Evan lifted his radio. Something moved behind him, another shape. The air smelled like wet stone. He popped a flare and held it high. The light made everything jump. He saw claws, long arms, and a chest that rose and fell with a hiss. One creature stepped back from the flare. The other circled. Evan understood then. These were not lost hikers. He walked backward, steady, toward his truck. When he closed the door, something hit the bed with a heavy thump. The metal dent is still there. He turned the siren on and drove out. The next morning he asked to move to desk duty. He still hikes, but never alone. And never after dark. 5 The school bus rode in a rural Texas town. The bus route runs along an oak tunnel. That afternoon, a storm rolled in, and the light went green. And strange EMS, Lane, the driver, slowed at a fallen limb. The kids were loud until they weren't. All at once they went quiet and looked to the same window. A figure stood by the ditch, dripping. Its fur lay flat against its chest like a soaked dog. It walked to the door. Ms. Lane shut it fast. The thing put one hand on the glass and leaned. The bus tilted on its shocks. A boy in the front seat whispered, "It's smiling, Ms." Lane pulled the lever and the door locked. She eased around the limb and pressed the gas steady. The creature trotted beside the bus for 30 yards, then broke off into the trees when they reached town. Muddy finger marks ran down the door. Window in long streaks. The police wrote a report and parked a cruiser at the oak tunnel for a week. Nothing came back. The kids still talk in the cafeteria about the teeth. The long teeth in a narrow jaw. 6. The hunters, blind to hunters in Pennsylvania, spent dawn in a ground blind. The forest was quiet after a hard frost. They heard a coyote yip to the east, then the same yip to the west, then the same voice directly behind the blind, but closer and wrong, like a person trying to copy a sound. One hunter slid his rifle toward the flap, a face lowered into view at the slit, an eye with a slit pupil and a film like old ice. The creature exhaled, and the blind walls puffed inward. They burst out and ran. The thing paced them in the trees, always just out of sight. It was not chasing hard, it was herding. Pushing them toward a thicket, they cut right and hit a logging road. The pacing stopped. At the truck, they realized something had walked on top of the blind after they left. The fabric had deep parallel rips like it was tested by claws. The prints on the road were long. The toes were wrong. Each had a hook at the end. They never hunted that ridge again. 7. The suburban fanciesa lived in a Wisconsin subdivision with small houses and big yards. Summer night, warm. She took trash to the can by the fence and froze. Something tall stood on the other side. It smelled like water left in a mop bucket. She heard a wet click, then a breath. The head rose over the fence line and tilted like a dog listening. The eyes were orange. She backed to the patio. The thing put both hands on the top board, and the wood creaked like a boat. Jessa ran inside and locked the slider. The creature walked along the fence, slow, like it was counting. Posts. It stopped at the corner where the street light made a weak pull. It did not step into the light. It turned and left, almost lazy. Police found deep gouges at the top of the fence, too high for any dog and too wide for a raccoon. A neighbor's camera caught a shape moving on two legs. The city posted a wildlife warning. Coyote activity, it said. Jessa does not take. Out trash after dark now. Ate the rail tunnel for urban explorers. Went into an old rail tunnel in West Virginia. They wanted cold air and pictures for their channel. Inside it smelled like pennies and damp fur. Their voices came back thin and afraid. One boy threw a rock and it never hit, as if something soft caught it. Then came the clicks, not echoes. Clicks from different corners. One light failed, then another. In the last weak beam they saw a shape low to the ground, then tall, as if it unfolded. It had long hands that touched the wall and left streaks of slime. The group backed out. The creature paced them just at the edge of light. When they broke into daylight, it stopped inside the tunnel mouth and watched. They took a single photo. Before running, in the photo the opening is black, but two orange points shine at a height above any man. That night they heard scratching on their motel door, like nails testing the metal. No one opened it. The next morning the hall carpet had muddy tracks that stopped at their door and turned away. 9. The snow cabin in northern Canada, a couple rode. Out a blizzard in a backcountry cabin. The wind screamed. Snow packed the windows. Near midnight the storm went strangely calm. They heard a slow step on the porch, then a soft tap on the glass. The man lifted the blackout blanket, and a face stared back through the frost. Long snout, wet nose, teeth bare. It did not fog the glass. It tapped again with a claw, deliberate. Then more steps, like something heavy circling. They fed the stove until the iron glowed. The creature pressed against the door. The wood bent and groaned. It sniffed, then made a sound like a low, steady hum. The woman began to shake and cover. Her ears. The man grabbed a metal poker from the fire and jammed it into the door crack. There was a hiss and the smell of burnt hair. The pressure lifted. They stayed awake until pale grey morning. In daylight, the drift at the door had a shallow trough, like a heavy body had lain there for hours. Watching. 10. The radio warning. Miles hosted a late-night call-in show for lonely drivers. He loved strange stories. One night, a man called and whispered, "It stands in the ditch and counts cars. Every 10th car, it follows." The caller gave a mile marker and hung up. Miles did something foolish. He drove there with a portable recorder. He parked by the marker and waited. The trees were black. The ditch was deeper than it looked. At 12 minutes a shape rose from the cattails. It turned its head left, then right. Counting, Miles forced himself to stay still. The thing stepped onto the shoulder and walked on two legs like a runner warming up. It passed his car, stopped, and backed up. It placed a hand on the hood and pulled its face close to the glass. The eyes were calm, not mad, not hungry, just sure. It traced a line in the dust. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then it tapped the windshield, soft and polite, and walked into the trees. Miles left at a steady speed. He did not floor it. He stared ahead and did not look into the mirror. Weeks later, he found a neat set of 10 tiny scratches on the inside of his windshield, as if something with small claws had counted from the passenger seat. People ask what Dogman wants: food, territory, fear. Some say it is a guardian of old places. Some say it is a hunter that learned to stand. You do not need to know what it is to survive it. Remember what these 10 learned the hard way. Do not run at once. Back away slow. Do not shine a bright light in its eyes unless you are ready to move. Do not shout. It watches. It learns your patterns. If the woods go silent, leave. If you smell wet dog and rot, leave. If it taps the glass, never open the door. The last truth is simple and terrible. It is not only in deep forest, it walks fence lines, back roads, rail tunnels, lakes, cabins, school routes. It can be anywhere. The night is a little thicker than it should be. If you are listening in the dark and your windows are thin, lock them now, draw the curtains, and count. If you reach 10 and hear a click on the glass, you already know the rest of the story.